Hey everybody, welcome to the Hello Road podcast, where we talk about unique and forgotten cars, road trips, travel, racing, writing, automotive journalism, and our current car adventures. My name is Ethan.
My name is Paul.
And today we have a special guest on our 50th episode. We actually made it to 50. I don't know how that's possible, but we did. He's an automotive writer, contributing to CarBibles, Donut Media, and a few other places, and also tracks a 100 horsepower Mazda 2. Welcome, Peter Nelson.
Thanks very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
Yes.
I've been spending a lot of time on the CarBibles site.
Yes.
Lately.
Excellent.
And once I heard that you track a Mazda 2, I think Paul was super excited about that as a fan of small, lightweight, low powered vehicles, car fast, kind of thing.
And a previous Mazda 2 owner myself.
Oh yes, that's true. You used to own one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been down there, been down the Mazda 2 path. So, but yeah, no, it's kind of a crazy thing because, we're looking for guests for the show. And then I came across the CarBibles site and came across you. And then I started putting two and two together. And I was like, you and I went to a track day together, or well, you were there and I was there.
Oh, really?
So it was, I think last year, it was either the Speed Ventures or the Extreme Speed one I went to. But
yes.
I was like, yep, that's this Mazda 2 that's out of the racetrack. I was like, okay, cool. So,
Hell yeah.
already there. So cool. Well, I think kind of to start out, I mean, I want to dive into the CarBibles thing. We both want to dive into it because I want to know a little bit more about it. I read some of the stuff on it, which was really cool, but I want to hear it from you. But tell us about yourself, like kind of your background and stuff like that, and all these other fun things that people want to hear.
Yeah, cool. So I moved out to California back in late 2016. And when I moved out here, I mean, I always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to do something automotive related professionally, for preferably the rest of my life. And I started writing a bit. I'd always enjoyed automotive journalism. I'd always kind of, enjoyed it in one way or another, or automotive writing in general. And so I started writing for a friend's blog, tracktuned.com. It's still up. They still do some cool stuff for sure. And that was kind of like a nice little entry point into like getting some writing and kind of learning how to blog on stuff. And then from there, I mean, without getting too deep into the weeds and without kind of boring the listeners, I started writing for windingroad.com because I was working for windingroadracing.com on the retail side of things, retail customer service. And it kind of like grew from there in a sense. The Donut Media part was kind of cool. Like a friend of mine was working in production for a different YouTube channel, and that went defunct. Some weird stuff happened, and she lost her. The channel went defunct or something, and she ended up following her producer to Donut, and she hit me up one day via text. She's like, "Hey, I know you like cars and do car stuff. I started working for this YouTube channel. If you've heard of it before, but it's called Donut Media." And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, they're always like looking for writers. And so like, I know you've done a little bit of writing. Would you like to like send me some links, whatever to your work? And I'm like, sure. And it kind of took off from there. So that's kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So built up had some awesome experiences there, writing some fun stuff. And it was kind of funny. They brought me in for like an interview, but it was just like, hey, let's nerd out and talk about cars and see what this guy's like,
Yeah.
And it went really well. As exactly how I expected it to go. Like, oh, everyone's like really friendly and like, I don't know, just super welcoming and really stoked on kind of all things cars. And James and I started talking about old Volkswagens because I used to own a Mark II Jetta, and he's owned like Mark IIs, he has that cool Mark III now, all that kind of stuff. But they're just like, all right, well, so we're going to have you write a spec script and then, kind of see how it goes from there. So what do we have coming up? And then so like they looked through the computer and like looked at what kind of scripts they had in the pipeline. They're just like, well, we got this, we got Roof. And I just chimed in. I'm like, I'll take Roof, like Roof as in the famous, Porsche tuner. They take body white Porsches and turn them into like beautiful creations.
Yes.
And I'm just like, I'll take that. And they're just like, oh, okay. And then so wrote the spec, submitted it. They liked it. And the rest is history. So that's kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then from there, just like kind of working for, writing for them, as well as building up some bylines at Winding Road, doing a little bit of freelance elsewhere with like Autolist.com, and I wrote for this one dude's blog on iRacing, which I'm not ultra knowledgeable about, but I know how to like kind of create blogs on some stuff. I did a little bit of that. And then, like the opportunity for CarBibles came up, and I saw it posted on social media, on Twitter, and kind of went after it, and the rest is history. So
awesome. That's cool. So it's just like, it's something that, I mean, Ethan and I, we do get a lot of automotive journalists on the show, and it always seems like it's kind of the same thing where there's a snowball effect that happens in the industry. It's like started here, and then this, and then this, and then all of a sudden, and now boom. And
totally.
so it's kind of the same thing, but at the same time, it's really cool because everybody's story is obviously unique. I mean, you're the first one I think we've had on the show that's been a contributor to Donut, which it can be divisive at times with some of the content. I personally love Donut. I think it's great. I was crying after the Dale Earnhardt episode the other day.
I haven't watched it yet. I need to watch that. Yeah.
So I mean, you know how it ends, but James is crying, and I'm crying on my couch.
Man, when he tears up, I tear up. So
for sure. He's an emotional guy. So But I mean,
good dude.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's cool. So CarBibles. So this. I'm gonna what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give what I think it is, and then you can tell me how right or how wrong I am.
Yes.
All right.
Here's what we think it is.
Here's what I think it is. So I saw it pop up a while ago. I saw Andrew Collins is kind of spearheading the whole thing, ex-Jalopnik, and then I start seeing other ex-Jalopnik names starting to get attached to it. So it's kind of like, okay, because I know Jalopnik, they had all that restructuring that kind of happened, what was it, like 2 years ago now? And, a lot of the writers kind of left, or, on their, I guess, the majority of them on their own terms from what I understand. And so this is kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes in a way, but it's done differently. It's the thing that I saw that's done really cool is how things are gone about on it, like the actual like car Bible for something. Like I read the one for the Fiat 500 Abarth, and I was like, this is super cool. So explain. Was I kind of on the right track? I mean, is that what it is?
I mean, so in terms of like, getting into automotive enthusiasm, and not just kind of like posting news, not just kind of posting, which that's cool too, but like getting more into like enthusiast centric stuff, definitely big time. I can't comment on any of the Jalopnik stuff necessarily,
right,
with people leaving ship and whatnot, but definitely like Andrew Collins and then also Patrick George are kind of he's my boss's boss essentially. They definitely brought a bit of that kind of like, hey, we want to do really cool stuff that we did a long time ago at Jalopnik, kind of really get that kind of, I don't know, just enthusiast audience, and also kind of draw towards that. And because I mean, and that's kind of what we are. And Andrew Collins put it really, really well, saying that CarBibles is like, he had a really good quote about it, saying essentially like car content with comic book energy. And I really dug that, because it's like, making things fun, making it kind of interesting. And also it's all, there's a pretty, it's kind of like, I don't want to say like budget minded approach, but kind of, because it's like, it's automotive enthusiasm, but it's not necessarily saying automotive enthusiasm about like lusting after supercars and exotics and stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of like automotive enthusiasm as like, oh, well, here's some resources for DIY. Here's some resources to kind of like, inspire you to work on your own stuff, or, information you need. It's kind of budget.
Here's some cars that you can actually afford.
Yes,
here's cars that you.
Yeah, totally. So like, I don't know. I really like that approach of like, everything just keeps getting more and more expensive. Gosh, especially nowadays. But like enthusiast cars they just for some reason just keep getting more expensive. But I like that we're coming from the angle of hey, anyone can have fun with cars. Anyone can kind of like kind of get into this, and people who are already into this, hopefully they're plenty of stuff for them too. I don't know, just kind of uniting I don't know, a broad spectrum of automotive nerdery, you know.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. Okay, cool. So I guess I was kind of right a little bit on what it is, but still,
Yeah.
but no, that's explained really well. So
Thanks.
I see that like with the nerdery, like the actual I need to read all of them. The little
Mhm.
Bibles that there is, like the Fiat 500 of Barth, like just everything about it, like that you would need if you were like, you know, many car enthusiasts. My new favorite word. I just learned what this word is, but it's now my favorite thing. Doom scroll.
Mhm.
Craigslist and offer up at night or CarMax, whatever, and they're like looking at like, oh, I saw like in my case, I saw this 1986 Civic Si. This thing is so cool, man. I want one. And you're doom scrolling looking for them and stuff. But you like, if you're like me and you're like Ethan and you like get this quest for wanting to know about the car and like the knowledge, sometimes that's easier said than done to find. If it's like something kind of
Mhm.
popular, like if you get this hankering to own a Miata,
Mhm.
cool. There's 1,001 resources on the internet that you can find all that information for a Miata. But if same with a Fiat, like a Fiat 500 Abarth, like there's information out there, but you're going to find mostly road tests from like when the car was new, not like what's the ownership like? What are some of the known problems?
Mhm.
It's like auto tempest in a way where it kind of just like pulls all the best parts of like,
Mhm.
or all the things about it. Like, okay, cool. This is what's good about him. This is what's bad about him. Here's some enthusiast sites. And
Well,
that's,
and it kind of goes beyond like, obviously if you want to learn about a car, you just hop on Wikipedia, but it's going to be a very dry sort of
Yep. Yep.
take on it, and you're not going to have all the insider knowledge on people that actually own these things. And
yeah.
yeah, and that's kind of the nice thing about these car Bibles. It sort of
Thanks.
kind of takes that Wikipedia approach, but really gives you like the insider scoop on everything,
Yeah.
and not just that. Because that's what I'm getting from it.
Yeah, totally. Like one of the things that we kind of pride ourselves in with these Bibles is kind of doing a lot of the work that is saving you some work, you know, like kind of
Yeah.
going in, especially when it comes to my favorite part is actually filling out and figuring out all the part numbers and like the
Mm.
maintenance aspect of it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and what's interesting too is not always is that stuff perfectly accurate. Like Kevin Williams with his Fiat 500 Barth, he's got some really good that's what I'm looking for. Just good like experience with that car and dealing with like how some part numbers don't match in like through normal channels. Like you have to really dig, or
Mm.
some parts are really expensive and you have to then like kind of get creative and figure out what else would fit, or whatever.
Yes.
And so kind of really going the extra mile, I think is something we really take pride in that. And being able to indeed you read through that and you get as much out of it as if you just spent like a good 6 hours combing through forums, Facebook groups, stuff like
Right.
that. So
Yeah, that's kind of nice too, because I think a lot of times what happens often is you have an article that's written about a vehicle, and then maybe one or two facts that are wrong, and then somebody else kind of writes another article, and they don't do a whole lot of research, and then they just start regurgitating. I can't talk. I've been drinking too much IPA. Regurgitating those incorrect facts. But it's actually great to hear that you guys are kind of doing a lot of research to try to make everything correct.
yeah, thanks. And also we do put a disclaimer in them too, saying like, hey, this is a living document. If we
Yeah,
said something wrong,
Yes.
or if there's more you'd like to add, by all means, let us know. In fact,
sure.
I just checked this. I did the C5 Corvette, and that was a fun one to write. And actually, that one was a little
Uh-huh.
bit easier to write, just because like there is just so much information out there because
Right.
there's so many
Yep.
people who love that car.
Yep.
And but there's some stuff I kind of missed. Like there are some comments in it saying like, hey, check out this, or this is something to look into as well. And it's like, I'm glad we're having this discourse. We can then kind of like vet that a little bit and add it into the Bible.
Sure.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So, as of current, how many of these things have been written? I mean, there's other
Mhm.
content on the site. I want to get to that, but like the
For sure.
Bibles
Yeah.
part of it is just like I'm just intrigued by it. Like I saw the
Yeah.
one, and now tonight I'm going to be like, I have to read all of them, and just because I this constant thirst for knowledge I have. But
Totally.
But I'm sure you're going to start looking for a Daihatsu Charade car
well,
Bible, right?
well,
Yeah.
I
one
mean,
day,
when
one day we might.
when
Well,
you do. I know somebody, so I
we
just happen to know
we need
somebody.
the owner impression or the owner review. Totally.
Okay,
Totally.
just let me know. I know somebody.
Well, this is actually a great opportunity to kind of plug the site and how great it is. Like the folks who went behind the scenes to like design and make everything kind of navigatable, if that's a word. Did an awesome job.
Fine.
You know, we've got the top bar with a bunch of stuff with Bibles, and so if you look through that, there's like, you know, as they get posted, they get posted there, and it looks like we've done a dozen or so. I want to say that sounds about right. If I'm just kind of scrolling through quickly, first one was the E46 M3 by Mr. Christopher Rosales, and he did a kick-ass job on that. He went. I mean, we all go to the weeds, but that one in particular, like he really added in a lot of cool details. So
there's
awesome.
I mean, cars like that, there's going to be a ton of information out there, and it's good. It's good to know because it's a car like a C5 Corvette E46 M3. You know, you really need to do your homework before you plop down and buy one of those cars if you're after one, especially an E46 M3. Making sure that everything, you're buying the best car that you possibly can, and not a basket case of a car. The same, I know those C5 Corvettes can have their own fair share of issues, even though I don't think they're as what's the word I'm looking for here? Needy, I guess, is a E46 M3.
Yeah. I mean, every little car has its foibles, it seems. When it comes to the C5 Corvette, if I recall correctly, that's one thing about all this. Like, quickly recalling certain facts, like, I mean, we do so much, and we learn so much, research so much. It's sometimes just like, okay, wait a minute, what was this again?
Yes.
But with the C5 Corvette, I mean, generally their issues aren't that bad, especially if you compare them with anything from, I mean, I hate to like make the, say, oh, European cars, but like they do have less issues than their European, competition. And what's cool too about C5 Corvettes is like most of the parts you just go into like an AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever, and get most of the stuff you need. So
yes, I had a sad C5 Corvette story. My one of my good friends in high school, after we had graduated, his mom, she bought herself a Millennium Yellow C5 Corvette, and it was the coolest thing ever. She would, nobody's allowed to touch it, nobody's allowed anything. You damn kids can't drive it. Anyways. A couple of years go by, and it's like 2003 or something like that, and there was, for some reason, she needed the car to get taken to the Ontario airport from their house in Glendora, and she's like, for some reason, because I had a Mustang at the time, so she's like, oh, Paul, you can drive it. And I was like, all right, cool, this is going to be awesome. I've never driven a Corvette before. I was so happy. I got in the car, I turned the key, and the key wouldn't turn. I was like, what the hell? So I'm like turning the steering wheel. I was like, maybe it's a lock or something like that. No, it wasn't. It was one of the faults on the C5 Corvette that has the steering column that just breaks randomly or something.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get to drive the C5 Corvette to Ontario Mills. I was like, yes, I finally get to. Oh, it didn't happen.
Bummer.
So, yeah, it was bummer. Total bummer. That's my C5 story. So I haven't told it on the show yet. It was.
I've never heard that. That's funny.
Yeah, that's my C5 story. Okay. So yeah.
We don't talk about Corvettes very much on the show.
No, we don't. We don't.
That was your opportunity.
That was my Corvette story. My one Corvette story I have.
And it will be the only. No, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'll get one.
So I was looking at some of the other things that you've written. You've got to experience quite a few different types of cars. I see you were in a McLaren 620R recently. And
I love that car so much. Oh my God.
and I guess, how long have you been writing? Because I feel like you kind of got into like some pretty fantastic cars pretty quickly. Or have you been doing this for a long time?
No, actually, I got into it pretty quickly. I'm very fortunate and very kind of thankful that kind of writing for Winding Road, that actually kind of, I don't want to say like, that was my ticket, but like, because I did have to do a lot of legwork. I did have to send a lot of emails, shake a lot of hands, kind of show that like, hey, I'm a responsible adult, and to PR departments and everything. But
sure.
But yeah, no, I mean, Winding Road was one of the first online with like automotive journalism. The site hasn't really changed since, which is actually kind of cool because like they don't have all the pop-ups and stuff. It's kind of just like a basic site. But anyway, they were kind of first to do it, and like they established the name a long time ago. In fact, a lot of staff has then gone on to work for some awesome some other uh, like other sources, like Stephen Ewing. Like he
Sure.
was on this show, and
Yep.
he was at one point editor in chief of, I think that was his title, but editor in chief of Winding Road. Bradley Iger was
Mm-hmm.
Scythe Mirzna. I think he works for Chevy or GMPR right now. But anyway, so folks who have been in the industry a long time, they worked for Winding Road, so it kind of established its name. And when I got in, when my boss Tom, the owner, CEO, etc. of Winding Road, when I got in, he was just like, "Oh, let's get you some press cars. Let's because he gave me the opportunity to like kind of do what I wanted with the site, and he's just like, "Yeah, let's get you
Sure.
some press cars and do this, do that. Let's kind of build this back up into something." And
Yeah.
I was able to hit up PR departments, and it took a little work for sure. But then some people would respond back with like, "Where have you been? Oh my gosh, it's so good to hear from you. Here, have some cars." So it was actually kind of cool.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, no, I mean, it's just a matter of like, I mean, I don't know, just kind of, just asking, and then kind of, and
Sure.
also, once building up a couple of reviews, kind of showing that it's like, hey, look, we can do this responsibly, and we can actually like do this in a cohesive
Sure.
video and written review. But
Sure.
just kind of, I see this with a lot of things in life in general. This is like a kind of a life lesson, but just ask,
Mm-hmm.
and it's wild how like if you just send like a nice friendly email that's asking about something, in this case like asking a PR department, hey, can I test drive this almost $300,000 car? It's
Yep.
amazing where if how things can go if you just ask nicely and provide enough ample whatever, saying like, hey, we may be a small name, but this, whatever, give us a chance. So anyway.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah, and that's a really good point for sure. And
Yeah.
I'm also just thinking about how you got started. I mean, the way you tell the story, it kind of makes it sound like one day you just decided, oh, I'm going to write about cars, and maybe that was a thing for you, but you also there was a whole lot of legwork and a whole lot of
Yeah.
like
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, like I've told my girlfriend about this before, and she agrees. Where like at any given time throughout the day, like at least 60% of my mind is dedicated to cars or my career or something. Because they're
sure.
combined. I mean, you really kind of have to. You got to put in the work. You got to do the legwork and be nice. Be responsible. You know, market yourself, all whatever, I don't know. Like
Yep.
you gotta put in the
Well,
work to like do cool stuff. So
and I will say that asking sometimes works. So,
yeah.
For instance, I'm going to be getting a Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross here pretty soon to review.
Mhm.
So I think you could be pretty jealous about that. Yes.
But no, it was wild because, well, actually, I should say McLaren. I lucked out a little bit with that because
Yeah.
one of my colleagues at Winding Road, who does video end, in Detroit, he had already like gotten in with them on the video end, and so like they hit him up saying, "Hey, we got this car in California," and then he's like, "Oh, actually, Peter's in California. He can do that," and then
Hmm.
that's that. So good coordination with your colleagues and whatever. That's
Yes.
that's also a good life lesson. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, like, and
Nice.
then just kind of, I don't know, you kind of build a little bit of a reputation. I mean, well, Ethan, you've had some cool cars for sure. I've seen your channel. You've done some
Oh
cool stuff.
yeah.
You've had all
Oh,
kinds
for
of cool
sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's kind of the same
is what
thing.
I'm saying
I
makes
told
sense or
Yeah,
does?
and I will echo what you've been saying, where it just comes down to, well, you're not going to get anywhere unless you come up with
Yeah,
a compelling compelling ask, and
yeah,
just hopefully, and then maybe a gentle reminder here and there, and then eventually somebody will get sick of it you asking, and be like, okay, fine,
yeah.
you could. um, but yeah, that's very cool, and I'm also just sort of curious, from a because in general, you're freelance, right?
Yep.
I mean, for pretty much most of your career.
Well, actually, just freelance starting when I got the CarBibles gig. It's a freelance. I mean, it's freelance full time. My
Sure. Yeah.
dedication to
Right.
CarBibles. That's first and foremost. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, December 15th, I think, was like, as in this most recent December 15th was kind of like my first foray into. I am now full-time freelance,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever. And it's kind of cool because I mean, I built up this relationship with, I kind of proved to automotive companies that like, hey, I do review and I post my stuff and I don't go over my mileage, limitations
Yep.
and stuff. And so being freelance, I do CarBibles, but then also, and then I also kind of contribute elsewhere, where I can on the
Right.
side,
Mm-hmm.
burn the midnight oil to do those things. So that's kind of cool.
Sure. Yeah, and I guess when it comes to freelancing, burning the midnight oil and that kind of thing, if somebody that wants to like get into this world, I mean, how hard is it? I'm curious. Like when you think about your significant other saying, "Hey, you spend a lot of time thinking about your career and work and that kind of thing." Like, is it a tough road?
Yeah, I will. So again, I did luck out a bit, getting in with
Uh-huh.
Winding Road because again,
Yep.
like I hit them up and they're just like, "Hey, where you been? Here, have a car," but otherwise, I would say, um, you know, keeping your ear to the ground for opportunities. I posted about this this was like last year. I posted on Instagram about this because someone
Uh-huh.
asked. But anyway, I random thought. But anyway,
Yep.
like keeping your ear to the ground for opportunities, being nice, being writing a nice, pleasant email. Also backing up and kind of having proof about what you want to do. Although,
Yeah.
maybe that's a down the road kind of thing because you figure like, well, someone who's just starting out writing, like, oh, like, you know, I don't want to say like, oh, they'll, what am I trying to say here? I guess what I'm
I
trying to say
totally get it.
is people,
I totally get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I was thinking about like I asked Hyundai for a car and they flat out said no.
Okay.
They said no, you don't have enough. You don't have enough. They didn't really give me a reason. They're like pretty much yeah, I didn't have enough views or whatever. And I just said, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to rent a couple Hyundais, and then
Yeah.
did a reviews with those that way. And then eventually they said yes. Um, so yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see what's a good way to put this? What's a good way to describe it? So I'd say just kind of, you know, doing the work, being friendly, networking, keeping your ear
Mhm.
to the ground for opportunities, and also even just like kind of doing your own thing too. Like, getting your writing out there in some way is always good. Like,
Right.
even if it's just like starting a blog and posting about it on Twitter, kind of like doing what you can to make the connections and doing what you can as well to like kind of improve at writing and do better, having that motivation, and also just like you know just like you said, kind of being okay with like not necessarily, I don't want to say failure, but being okay with
Sure.
like some bumps in the road,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
so
I
because I've
we
had bumps in the road too. In fact, I mean, there's some OEMs I haven't been able to get in with yet, even though I've like requested and
sure.
asked and been nice and tried to, whatever. Um, so I mean, it's always an uphill. Well, I don't want to say it's always an uphill, but it's always like you gotta, I don't know, you gotta work. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm also just sort of curious as sort of somebody that's I'm not really a writer, but I write, I write some scripts and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And actually as doing my YouTube channel, I've kind of maybe become I think a better writer. But I'm just sort of curious like what your process is just in terms of writing. We don't generally talk about writing that much, but
Okay.
I'm just sort of curious like um when we had Stephen Ewing on, he was talking about how he just basically just kind of writes an article from start to finish. I'm like, how do you do that? For me, I kind of like write like way too much and then start chipping away and
Mhm.
chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. I'm kind of curious like what your process is for something like that McLaren
Mhm.
review. How would you actually take something like that on and write something like that
Oh man.
from a writer's perspective?
Yeah. When it comes to review, I kind of everything I write a little bit different. Like reviews I write differently,
Yeah.
like blog posts and car Bibles I write differently.
Yeah.
But with reviews in the process, it's definitely a matter of like just kind of I don't do the intro or conclusion at first. I leave those out. I write
Mhm.
kind of
Mm.
the body. I write about interior, exterior, performance, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
I kind of write it out and just kind of like write it out. Don't pay too much attention to like, oh, does this flow well, or is this thought too
Sure.
awkward, whatever. And then from there, I kind of scan over and I kind of think like, okay, well, what can I do to make this, what can I do with these transitions here? Like, how can I make this like transition better? Or how can I make this sound a little bit more interesting and not just like the standard, automotive journalistic lingo,
The shifter falls nicely to hand.
Yeah, right. Or
The
like
ingress and egress are.
yeah, right. Or I absolutely hate the bolt action rifle comparison. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I can't. I mean, I get it. Like, yeah, everyone's, but it's like, man, everyone has said that, So, but
Sure,
anyway,
yeah.
but I digress with that. But anyway, but yeah, just making it interesting and kind of, and also more importantly too, like putting your own voice on it. Kind of. I think it's important to kind of, I don't want to say like make your mark, but like make it, in your voice that kind of sticks out and is kind of different than other people too. Like,
Sure.
one thing at Winding Road that I really dug was it's like, okay, we're a performance-oriented website. Tons of racers and track day folks and autocrossers read this site, read our newsletter. I should go into the weeds a little bit further with some of the performance comparisons and whatnot, and digging into that, and because this is what people will appreciate more. And I like to think that's kind of carried over with my writing elsewhere too, saying like I'm going to focus more on like describing the experience of like how this car handles and brakes and the steering feel, and not focus too much. I mean, I'll cover infotainment and I'll cover, interior materials, but like, not as heavily. So.
Sure. Yep. Do you have is your background in writing? Like before you start writing for cars?
Kind of in writing.
About cars?
Kind of in writing. I got my bachelor's degree in German and international studies from Illinois State University. So I studied foreign language and just kind of like, I don't know, geopolitics in college. I graduated in 2009 and didn't obviously do anything with that, albeit I've had a couple of translation gigs and it's kind of cool.
Okay.
But
awesome.
yeah, I mean, I interestingly enough though, I brought this up to somebody recently, but I took a creative writing class in college as just like, whatever, like elective, whatever. And I did really well. Like I aced it and I felt like I didn't have to do much work in it. And maybe it was the professor, but like, I really enjoyed that class. And looking back, I'm like, I probably should have pursued that further, or at least like minored in creative writing or something, but oh well. Say Levy.
Well, very cool. I mean, judging from stuff I've seen on your Instagram and stuff, you recently had the BMW M2 CS. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that the correct name of the car? The M2 CS.
Yep. The M2 CS it's the final year of this Generation 2 series. I forget what the chassis number is. I mean, I know most of them, but man, memorizing all the chassis numbers is an experience.
Since 2010, it's been very, very difficult to do.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But something like that car right there, you see, you got that car, you're out to review it, do all of your fun stuff with it. You had the McLaren, the 650R. Did I say that one right?
620R.
620R. I made a new model for them real quick. Yeah,
I mean,
big deal.
We know you're more into Daihatsus.
I'm more into Daihatsus than McLarens. But so you've gone through all of these like really cool cars. You've had all these great opportunities to drive some absolutely amazing cars, but yet at the end of the day, I'm gonna say it. You come home to that Mazda 2.
Hell yeah. Well, like.
So tell us about the 2.
Oh man, yeah. So, well, like, actually, I should say recently I've been driving the Discovery more. So I picked up a Land Rover Discovery project. And that thing's so much fun and it's so easy to wrench on. So I haven't been driving the 2 as much lately as I would like to, but no, I swear by this, and like people listening are probably going to laugh their heads off and think like, what is wrong with this guy? But I swear that like when I bring back whatever expensive, fast, whatever car, when I come back to the Mazda 2, I still smile and I'm still just like, oh, hell yeah. Or like, or downshift in a second, near red line and like take a right-hand turn really fast here in Long Beach, it's still a lot of fun. It's still like a good kind of reset, and I like to think it keeps me, I don't know, the Mazda 2 keeps me sharp, meaning like, it gives me something to compare with. And then like, I don't know, like, you'd be surprised how many shifters out there don't feel as good as a Mazda 2s, or
It's a very
you know,
interesting feeling shifter
yeah, and like, well,
because it's
especially.
on.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh no,
Sorry.
I was gonna say like I have like $60 invested in to make it like shorter and more direct, and
Mhm.
it feels better than a lot of shifters out there, which is kind of hilarious because it's like this is a
Yeah.
shifter designed for a car that I literally bought for less than $14,000 out the door in
Mhm.
2014.
Yes.
It's like how can some brands not do better than that? But anyway,
Right.
but
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a good reset and like kind of like light. There's no substitution for lightweight grip. You know,
Mhm.
the Mazda 2 is fairly revvy. It's not amazingly revvy, but it's decently revvy. There's no
Right.
substitution for that, and it really like it's a whole nother level of fun. And I've told some people before that's like this thing's as fun to like wheel through the canyons as like stuff that costs friggin' 10 times more than it. And like the looks on some people's faces are just like, what are you saying? But
Yeah.
there's something about that. And there's also
Yeah.
something about having a small, slow car that you kind of barrel into like canyon corners and also cut your own line because it's so small. And you can
Yeah.
cut a nice line
Yeah.
and still
That's a
be
good
well
point.
within the double yellow, not put anyone in
Yeah.
danger and
Mhm.
have all the
Mhm.
fun in the world. So
Yeah, and we've talked about this before. We had a whole episode on slow car fast, and I think that's one of the things that we both Paul and I are attracted to is just the idea of taking a vehicle that you can within the limits of within the speed limits kind of reach the limits of the vehicle,
yeah,
Yep.
or
yeah,
close to, and you don't feel like you're going to die
yeah,
taking it on Angeles Crest,
Mhm.
yep, yep. Or like kind of I don't know. There's also it's kind of fun on Angeles Crest in particular to kind of build up momentum and
yeah.
carry that speed through corners. And like
Mhm.
I'm not bragging here. I'm just like it's amazing how quickly you can come up on some cars that are much faster, or stay with some cars that are much faster. And again, keeping your 7/10, 6/10, keeping it nice and safe.
Sure.
But it's amazing how like just carrying momentum can be so much fun. And like, yeah, sure, like the straightaways, it's nothing, to write home about, but I don't know. It's an experience, and more people should, especially nowadays, more people need to experience that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. So you have that's like a reset car, and you mentioned about the Discovery. So I I have always been scared to go
Scared. I
down.
was going to say same thing. I'm scared of Land Rovers.
I'm
Like,
too scared.
yeah.
So what does it take to get over the hurdle of fear to become a
Oh,
Range
Land.
Rover or Land Rover owner?
Well, you have to be scared too, because that fear motivates you to like do everything you can to make it like as reliable as possible, at least in my opinion. Um,
Sure.
luckily, I bought a nice example. Like,
Okay.
I mean, especially with like again enthusiast car prices going up
Mhm.
so much, in the
Mhm.
past year or so. Um, I was looking around for like NC Miata or Toyo Brew or something, but like, man, just for what you get and how much it costs, how much they used to cost, I'm like, this, I don't know, it's just not a good deal anymore. Whereas like, I'm just like, well,
Yeah.
I should look into off-roaders more because I've always loved them, especially after I had some
Mhm.
awesome off-roader press cars. And it's like, this is a great thing to do in Southern California.
Yeah.
And I've always loved Land Rover, like,
Okay.
ever since I was a kid, just because like just seeing discos and disco ones, disco twos, like on display. I wrote in one blog about how like I used to see them on display in this one dealership near where I grew up, and like I always thought they looked so cool, especially Safari windows, kind of sitting up nice and high.
Yeah. Totally.
I always dug the look, and so like this, I saw this on Craigslist and got a good deal on it, and it's in good shape. It's sturdy. There's no rust on it whatsoever. A lot of the steering componentry is in good shape. It just has this couple of small minor issues, like the previous owner disconnected the power steering, which
Mm.
I actually just restored it last night. I got the lines, installed them. It was a fiasco, but it worked out. But I got it all connected, and it's running fine. It's not leaking anywhere either. So I'm like, well, why did they disconnect it? Were the lines bad? Because like, I mean,
That is strange.
like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it was kind of a pain, but like not outside the realm of like, oh, this is something to do, to replace these lines, but whatever. Um, and then it has a slight tick, which I've narrowed down to something either valve train or possibly water pump related, which it's amazing how many different ticks these engines can make and how like some of them are fine, but some of them are just like, oh, this is very scary. Meaning like if these engines overheat too much, so they're aluminum blocks. the
Uh-huh.
steel cylinder liners will like
Oh.
drop and like kind of flap up and down inside the engine.
Oh
If it,
boy.
which like some in the forums are saying everything from it's fine, they tick, whatever, who cares, nothing will happen, you just get worse gas mileage. And then some are saying, oh, the cylinder liner is going to drop, hit the crank, and you're going to have like a massive explosion under the hood of your car. So,
There's the fear right there.
yeah, exactly. There's the fear, which is
it's
like
things
that.
like it's
Yeah,
things like that you hear, and you're just like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
But here's the thing though, like you have those fears with a car like, like Land Rovers, Range Rovers, but I recently had that Jeep Grand Cherokee, which
Mhm.
has everybody says it's the indestructible 4-liter inline 6-cylinder.
Oh man,
And
yeah.
and the particular vehicle that I had, this was on its second engine, and I drove it for about 1,000 miles, and the piston skirt cracked.
Oh
And I
man,
went online and I found out that this happens all the time, but yet still somehow this motor has this legendary
The
reliability
reputation.
record,
Yeah.
yeah.
reputation. So I think it kind of just could just be like we've all just sort of been. You're supposed to be afraid of Land Rovers. You're supposed to be
Yeah.
afraid of
Yeah,
Range
yeah.
Rovers, but well, I
It's
don't
like
know.
owning a
Maybe they're
pit bull. That's the
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like all cars have their foibles, and granted, yeah,
right.
I
yeah,
will admit Land Rover has some weird stuff going on, like here and there.
yeah.
I genuinely think I lucked out with a lot of stuff because so
Sure.
many people I've seen on social media, it's like they buy a Discovery One like mine, and they're just like, I got to fix this window, it doesn't roll up, or oh, this my air conditioning doesn't work, like minor
Yep.
little stuff like that. Whereas like all that stuff works for me, so I think I lucked out a lot.
Yeah.
There's a couple little things, but generally, and again, fingers crossed, all fingers and toes crossed, that the ticking sound is just valve train related.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like otherwise, and also it overheats a bit, but that's just because it's the original radiator and it has 182,000 miles. So, like, yeah,
Okay.
it's due for a radiator. But besides that, like, it's pretty sturdy. I'm pretty
Cool.
fingers crossed. I don't like to. I don't want to like confidently say anything because if I do, it's just gonna like drop a bunch of oil or my power steering is gonna explode
Sure.
the next time I drive it. So
Well, I guess I'm sort of curious too, because I own a bunch of mostly terrible cars. So I'm curious, like when you drive this thing, do you ever just worry that you're not going to make it home? Is that part of the experience? You just like, or is it good enough that you know that you're pretty much going to be able to get around to where you need to get to?
yeah, I know that. So how it runs and how there's some light seepage of oil at the moment, stuff like that. I know that I'll at least get home, but
Sure.
how I get home, you know, it takes a little finesse. The longest trip I've taken on so far is only 50 miles, but I mean, it was kind of one of those hot evenings like a week or two ago, and
Hmm.
the needle was going pretty high up on the water on the water temperature gauge, and so I had to like
Yep.
drop all the windows, crank up the heat to bring it back down.
Yep.
And so it's just like this is not like this is not long term. Um, you know, and I knew it had plenty of oil. I knew it had plenty of coolant too, so I knew it wasn't actually leaking
Yep.
coolant. Because I was kind of keeping an eye on the coolant level, so I know that wasn't an issue. And then at the time, it didn't have the power steering, so it's just like, "Oh, this thing's gonna be a bear to like park anywhere." But at least I know that that's not leaking. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I mean, but otherwise, like it runs well. It doesn't throw any check engine lights. It doesn't, to my knowledge, it's not like pinging or like doing any weird running what's drivability issues like that. So
Right.
Sure.
again, knock on wood, so far so good. So
Yeah, I mean, this is we've had a couple other guests on that have had cars that kind of have a reputation. Like we've had Derek Powell on, and he has a Audi Allroad.
oh man,
And
air suspension issues, I think, right?
I think it has all issues.
Yes.
But no, but
Every
his,
issue.
but I kind of, you know, asked him about that, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's been fine."
Yeah,
So it works. So
yeah,
I guess the thing of it is, and we've talked about like the fear and stuff before. Like, there's a connotation with like Land Rovers that there's going to be, oh, it's going to be a whole basket of problems. But it's like with any older car, is it going to make it home? Ethan's
yeah.
got his fine fleet of automobiles that he kind of experienced that. I experienced that with my little Daihatsu too.
Okay.
The fear's there with me all the time with it driving it, because I'm like, if something breaks, am I going to be able to? It's not really if I'm going to be able to get home, but it's more like, am I going to be able to find a part for it?
Yeah,
that's the big thing with it. But
you have to go on eBay and get some parts shipped from the
Lithuania,
Philippines or
Lithuania, and you know what? They're still right here. Look, there's my control arm. So,
factory direct from Lithuania.
Factory direct from Lithuania.
Can you hear me, by the way?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Oh, my the level wasn't jumping up when I talked, so I wasn't sure if it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
You can still hear
it.
No, we hear you good.
Yes.
We hear you good. But it's awesome to hear about a good experience about it, because it's hearsay. You hear somebody say, "Oh, Land Rovers. Oh, yeah, you don't want to touch those with a 10-foot pole." Do you know any Land Rover owners? Well, no. Okay.
Yeah.
And then now it's like, okay, yeah, you've had it. How long have you had the Disco for now?
Oh, just about a month.
About a month.
So again, I'm still pretty wet behind the ears with all this, but I mean, after doing my research, talking to other enthusiasts, a lot of folks who I nerd out with about cars. Andrew Collins as well. He had a Disco one some years ago. Doing a little bit of research and being prepared is important too. And then also, the Disco one is actually, a lot of people regard it as like the reliable old Land Rover.
Right.
Because the Disco 2 had some weird issues, and that was actually more prone to having the weird cylinder liner issue, or sleeve issue rather, and some other little foibles here and there. But the Disco 1 was largely missed by a lot of like weird stuff that people kind of pin on Land Rover. And then it does have the head gasket issue, like, oh, it'll eat head gaskets like crazy. Well, at least they're easy to replace, and luckily I have a service record saying that it was replaced just like 10,000 miles ago or so. So, I mean, I know I've got a little bit of time on that. So
there you go.
So it's very, very likely that we'll see a car Bible on the Disco pretty soon.
Possibly.
Maybe. Possibly. You have a lot of first-hand knowledge we got going on. So.
It's funny how
you heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny too, because we were talking about, we joke about this in Slack and on Twitter about how about how Kevin Williams, my colleague Kevin Williams, he's inspired us to go out and like buy cars and like wrench for and whatnot, and it's totally true. Like
that's awesome.
He was posting about how he bought this and did this and flipped it and whatever. He had the Hyundai Coupe, I forget the name, whatever it was.
The Tiburon.
The Tiburon. He had the Tiburon, he had the 500L, he's now got the Abarth, and he's doing all this stuff, he's finding these issues. It's like, man, I miss wrenching on stuff. The Mazda 2 is too reliable. And I've done pretty much all you can do modification wise. So
right.
Just like, well, I'm inspired for sure. And he definitely was like good/bad influence.
Yes. I follow him on Twitter, and it definitely he's kind of getting me the itch to buy another vehicle, even though I haven't fixed the ones that I've got already. But he's probably a lot better at fixing them than I am. So,
well, especially after seeing how much it costs to run and register the Disco as well, I'm just like, this thing's cheaper to run. Well, not gasoline wise, but registration insurance is cheaper than the Mazda 2. So I'm just like, what if I sold the Mazda 2 and bought another old car? And it's just like, oh no.
You need one reliable vehicle.
That's true. And then the Mazda 2, you could run that thing on sand and it'll be fine. Like the most reliable car ever. So it's probably a good idea to keep that around a long time.
Yeah,
totally. So with the Disco, what's the plans for it? Are we going to be seeing you driving around with like the little, I don't even know what the hell they call them, those little sand things that you see all the Tacomas have on it and all that stuff?
They're called grip plate or whatever it is.
The grip plates. You see all these things. I'm not knocking it. I think it's cool to each their own. But what's kind of the direction you want to go with the Disco? You just want it to wrench on it and just kind of like maybe prove to yourself and others about some of like the negative connotations of Land Rover, like, hey, these things are actually pretty reliable. And at the end of the day, and you go to if you take it off-roading, it's going to perform like a Land Rover, which those things are pretty damn good up there.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, my plan is, first and foremost, make it as reliable as I can. So ensure that, again, like no major oil leaks, make sure it stays nice and cool, especially in the hot weather, because Andrew, we were talking about this in Slack, but like paramount is for cars to run cool when they're off-roading, because you've got a running engine, hot sun, low speed, so you got to make sure it can run cool. But power steering, which that's done. thankfully. But yeah, run
Nice.
cool, and
Probably
then just,
good for off-roading too, I think, power steering.
yeah. Well, you figure like slippery surface, but still, yeah. No, I want to have power steering for sure.
Right.
Make sure everything runs well. Like, the transfer box works fine. You can gauge it's permanently full-time 4-wheel drive.
Okay.
So 4 high is fine. It's easy to switch into 4 low, and also the lockers. So that's good. The brakes are in good shape. The tires are in good shape. Once all the reliability stuff is all good, I'm going to eventually maybe lift it, but it actually might not need it because there's this one dude, I forget his YouTube channel, but he actually recently, him and his wife picked up a red D1, and they're doing some pretty gnarly stuff on just like stock ride height. So, we'll see. If anything, it's like an aesthetic thing. And also coming from like track stuff, oh my God, off-road suspension is so cheap, like lift kit stuff, compared to like,
Really? Okay.
2-wheel adjustable
Track.
coilovers.
Right.
Yeah,
geez.
like, oh my gosh. But then also like, improve the clearance a little bit. Like I'm going to do a bumper cover cut on it, to gain a little more clearance, and it just looks better too. But otherwise just enjoy it as like a fun runabout / go out to the desert / camp in it. I'm not going to do rooftop camp. I'm going to try to camp in the back of it at some point. Yeah, just kind of go out and do more adventurous California stuff, because I've done it with some pressers in the past, and it's like, man, I've always wanted to do this with like my own car. And so,
Sure. Awesome. That's
good
cool. I'm excited to see where you take that.
Thank you.
And it's always great when I have somebody that's kind of close around me, and that has like one of these kind of cars that you can like really watch it from afar. Be like, okay, cool. Maybe I'll start looking for one now. His is fine. I'm sure. I'm sure the one I'll go get, it'll be fine too.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. Well, it's kind of cool too, because it's like, I don't know, blogging about it, and then also just like in general the stuff we blog about on CarBibles. It's like it's kind of giving some people more familiarity on these kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, like all these blogs. I've got a ton of blogs in the pipeline, but and as they kind of come out, it's like when people see, it's like, oh, maybe these aren't like horrendous electrical nightmares like everyone says they are, So, and then the same goes for a lot of stuff we write about and kind of research and talk about. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the disco sounds fun. The CarBible site, it sounds like it's just so awesome. It's such a great idea, and this was something that Andrew thought of, right?
Yeah, He's the brains of a lot of this stuff. He's come up with some awesome ideas, and it's really cool. It's been a total honor and really awesome working with him and the rest of the team. So, like
Very
Chris
cool.
and Kevin are awesome dudes, super friendly, super hilarious, awesome writers. Patrick George is great. Like, and also like everyone, including like our drive colleagues, everyone's really funny. Like everyone's just like funny and helpful, and yeah, it's good times. So.
Oh, that's
great. Awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Like everyone all of our colleagues on the drive side are great people too, for sure. It's been great getting to know them and kind of being in on some of the behind the scenes stuff with that and everything. So yeah.
Oh, very
Sweet.
cool. Very cool.
When's the next track day in the Mazda 2?
Oh man. I wanna it's funny. Gosh, I'm just with kind of disco stuff, and also just like saving my weekends for kind of doing whatever else. The track hasn't been on my mind a whole lot lately, but I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Because again, the Mazda 2 is dead reliable. I want to do like a track day in like the middle of July or something, because that's when like a lot of people won't go out because their cars won't run well.
Yes.
Man,
it's terrible.
Man,
it's so bad here.
Go to Button Willow in like August.
It's 110 degrees like all day.
Yeah.
It's rough. But
man. Well, the one that we were at, it was hot.
Yeah,
it was in streets, and it was probably 100 and something outside, and it was just it's one of those days when all the Civic Type R's leave halfway through the day because they've all overheated.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
we can't take anymore.
Yeah, and so all the turbo cars basically like, okay, too hot, time to go.
Yeah,
but no, and still out there hammering away at it, and it's fine. Oh, that's it's so cool that the Mazda 2, you have the Mazda 2. Mine I had bought in 2011. It was the replacement for my beloved Mini Cooper that I owned for so many years.
Okay, very
cool. I never got to track mine. I autocrossed it a good few times, and I remember the first time I autocrossed it, everybody laughed at me. As I was pulling up to the starting thing, or the little start line thing, everyone's like, "What the hell is this idiot doing?" Yeah, and then I took off with it, and everybody's like, "Whoa, okay, it's actually went down a faster time than this." You know, I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah,
or at
it's
least like that thing's
it's
paxing higher than whatever, and whatever that's
yeah,
way more expensive than it, But no, like because
yeah."
the Mazda 2 actually dominated STF in autocross for a long time.
Oh, did it? Okay.
God, I forget his name, Andy something or other. I forget his last name, but
And Andy Hollis.
Andy Hollis, took it to nationals in
He
2012
he
and
took it to
like
yep.
wiped the floor with STF.
Yep, with a little Mazda 2. And then it's amazing that it's such a great little car, and Mazda really had something with that car in particular, and kind of as a brand as a whole, that they don't have now. I mean, they took that thing to Thunderhill for the 25 hours of Thunderhill. I think 2 or 3 years they had a car out there, and it was just beating on it, and it lasted the whole entire time. It didn't. I don't think it won its class, of course, but it lasted, and that's the biggest thing with those big 25-hour Thunderhill
endurance
races.
racing. That's crucial. Oh yeah.
But it's so awesome. It's such a great little car. You know, it's just a sad thing that like cars like that are kind of really gone from the American shores now. You really got to look, on the used market, which is fine. I mean, they're fairly obtainable used. I mean, it's less than 10 grand for a Mazda 2 with the touring.
Way
you got to get the touring with so you can at least have the little buttons on the steering wheel. But
so you at least have cruise control. And
the cruise control, but they're.
Well, you're totally right though. Like the small compact cars, that's done. If we want a racing series in a few years, it's going to be like Spec Hyundai Venue or something.
Yeah.
It's I mean, and it's funny. I drove a Toyota CHR a couple months back because I was just like,
that's your favorite car, Ethan. Ethan's favorite car.
Well, I drove it because I was just like, I asked for it because I'm just like, all right, I want to know what these are all about. I want to know what kind of the replacement for a cheap hatchback is all about. And I mean, it was okay, and like the thing is, the CVT killed it for sure, and then like the kind of like eco tires killed it, but I swear though, if that thing had like a conventional auto or a manual and slightly better tires, it'd be all right, albeit obviously nothing like, a B segment car like a Mazda 2 Mini, Yaris, Fit, etc. But it's like, well, I mean, if this is how things are going, at least this is like kind of cool. But it was okay, but it left a bit to be desired.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep, and then you see a ton of them out on the road. That's like what dominates everything, at least here in Southern California. CHRs, Honda HRVs.
Yeah.
And it's just the way things are going. Everybody wants these, CUVs, and they can't get the CRV or the what the hell is the Toyota, the RAV4. So, they're gonna CHR, it's still a Toyota. It's like a RAV4, right? But that's the replacement cheap car that they have. So, well, we can sit here and look back in the past at the wonderful times when Mazda had the 2 offered here. You can get a Ford Fiesta, you can get a Honda
Fiesta with a turbo too. I was so bummed when they ended the Fiesta ST.
Yeah, no, it's good old.
Well, you kind of like the Chevy Sonic, didn't you? There, Paul. You thought that was kind of
the Sonics was cool. Yeah, all this stuff was out there, but it's you can still get the Chevy. What the hell's the little
Spark?
Thing called?
The Spark. Yeah, the Spark.
And it has. I was on the configurator that day because I saw one in this. I'm not really a huge fan of white cars, but it was an off-white, so I had to look it up to see what it is, and it had the coolest name I've ever seen for a color on the Chevy Spark. It's called Toasted Marshmallow,
nice.
And that's the perfect way to describe what the white was. It's like a perfectly toasted marshmallow. I was like, that's a damn good white on that car.
Nice job, GM. Well,
good job.
The Spark is called like it's got a really funny name in Germany. It's called like the Carl or something. Like it's like a name, and like it's like, oh, that's Carl over there. It's got a goofy name like that. I don't.
It's the Chevrolet Maximilian.
right. I forget what brand I forget what's branded as over there, but it's got a funny name. And one thing about the Spark, you can get tons of cool, kooky, fun colors with it, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Like that's a rarity in this day and age,
The Bolt too, like you get the Bolt in that kind of cool blue color, and there's sort of like a lime green color that they had, or yellowish green. Yeah, that's actually kind of nice. And I will give credit to the CHR. I feel like the CHR came in a couple fun colors too. So.
Yeah, I like its kooky design. The kind of the weird interior accents, and just the design of it. It's fun. I just wish the driving experience was it matched it. So
yeah.
Oh, fun stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. So I guess the next thing we need to do here is figure out where everybody can find you on the social medias there, Peter. Where can people find you?
Just 16 VP.
And 16V, was that a nod to a particular vehicle, like the Scirocco 16 valve or something like that? No.
Oh man. So quick story. So when I got my Jetta in high school, it was I was on one form I was 8-valve Gans. Gans is German for goose.
Okay.
And so that was an 8-valve engine. And then when I got my first Mazda Protege, I'm just like, oh, I have 16 valves now. So I was 16-valve Gans, and then it turned into 16-valve Pete, and the rest is history. And with a Land Rover, I am still 16-valve Pete because it's a V8 with only 16 valves.
Okay. That works.
That works.
Oh, that's awesome. How many valves does a Mazda 2 have?
16.
Yeah.
Oh,
there you go. It works out.
there you go.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
All right, Paul, what about you?
Well, you can find me on MySpace and Friendster at Paul's Finest Hour. I guess on Instagram and Twitter as well. But yeah, MySpace for sure. You can see my new background. I just posted a new photo with No, I'm just kidding. I don't have MySpace.
Man, Friendster, that takes me back. Wow.
Yeah.
Ethan, where can everybody find you?
YouTube.com/Hello Road. I just posted a new video on the new Toyota Highlander Hybrid, which nobody's watched because nobody gives a shit, which is fine. I totally get it. But yeah, I've got another video with my Ford Probe that's coming up soon where I talk about how I killed it.
R.I.P.
I forgot you had a Probe, but an excellent Mazda creation right there.
I know it was a good car, very difficult to maintain. But anyway, yes. Also Instagram and Twitter, Mr. Ethan Tufts. And I've got some fun crossovers that I've got coming up soon. I just have a Mitsubishi Outlander in my driveway right now. It's pretty fantastic. A new one, 2022.
Ooh,
pretty fancy.
It's from the future, huh?
I know.
Damn. How do they get those to you from the future? That's what I want to know.
Sure.
I have to do a video about it. So, Peter, thanks for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was great to talk and kind of chat about my background and CarBibles and everything. This was awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate
awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on episode 51. All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.